Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining Dorsey on another episode of the Dorsey Ross Podcast. As always, Dorsey will share from his heart and give you a very inspiring message. Now, here is your host, Dorsey Ross.
Thank you again for joining me on another episode of the Dorsey Ross Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is James Badu, and he became a quadriplegic, dislocating 3 vertebrae in his neck from playing a football game. The doctor said, James, I'm sorry, you'll never walk again, and you might be paralyzed from your neck down. Later, the doctor advised his family to place him in a nursing home. He will be too much of a burden for them to take care of. Now, Dr. James Badu, Professor of Perseverance, worked hard to achieve success as an award-winning educator coaching a state championship team. As a motivational, inspirational speaker, best-selling author, and life coach, James helps people get out of their past, step into their future, and persevere to their future. James, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Dorsey, thank you for having me on and giving me this opportunity to share with your listeners.
Yes, thank you. So, James, tell me, what is your story? It seems like you have a very, encouraging and very, life-altering story. So what is that story that you want to share today?
Yeah, the Reader's Digest part of it, story is that I grew up and wanted to be a professional baseball player, wanted to be able to, provide for my mom and brothers, family that way. And I got to play one college game in baseball in college, one game, and I was the only freshman that started. The very next day on college campus, there was people playing football. Now, there was no helmets, no protective gear, no pads, nothing like that, but we were playing tackle football. My team had got the ball back, and we'd been out there probably 2 hours, and I told them, hey, I'm tired, need to get my stuff ready for class. And so I walked out of the huddle and said, I'm done playing for today. Then I heard someone from my team say, well, we need someone to run the ball. So I stopped and turned around and came back for that one more play. And that play has put me where I'm at today. So they hand the ball off to me. I ended up breaking a few tackles and scored a touchdown. And then when I was turning back towards everybody on the field and had put the ball down for scoring a touchdown, I saw something in my peripheral vision on my right side. I don't know what it was. It saw something. And then I felt some contact up high on my right shoulder. And then I heard a loud pop. And then both of us went to the ground. And Dorsey, I'm going to give you a little hint, buddy. Only one of us came to our feet. And the hint is it wasn't me. I was paralyzed instantly.
That's crazy.
So, you hear a lot of stories where people go, you hear people go like, I'll be retiring in a month. And then something, happens. They find they've got cancer or a heart attack or the house burns down or something. And they're going, I was going to retire in a month. There's another gentleman I met on my podcast. His named Captain Charlie Plum. And he was in the Vietnam War in the late 60s. And he said he was on his last flying mission, last one, number 75 and the last one. And he got shot down and then was a prisoner of war for nearly 6 years. So you hear a lot of times, people, I was going to do it one more time or, one more month or whatever. And then it seemed like it's just giving an open invitation for something to happen.
Right. So how do you, what happened after you got paralyzed? What happened in the hospital? How did you feel when the doctors told you that you were going to be paralyzed and even, told your parents, hey, you might as well put him into a nursing home?
Yeah, at the beginning, I was one of them that growing up, I had that that mindset that I was invincible. Nothing was going to stop me. I was going to do what I wanted to do, and nothing was going to be in my way. If I wanted it bad enough, I was going to do it. And so even when the doctor said I'd never walk again and possibly not move from my neck down, I didn't have that. I didn't have that mindset of poor pitiful me with the thing, because I always thought that I would walk again. I just knew my baseball career and everything would be over with. But yeah, when he said that, I don't know, it just didn't. I don't know. I was probably in denial and shock, probably. But I didn't just think, because I always, again, thinking I was invincible. I used that same mindset during early on with my paralysis and trying to get better with everything. So,
Right. How do you stay, so positive? Because it's probably not an easy thing to stay positive when you're, paralyzed.
yeah, Dorsey, I'm sure you have met these type of people, and you say, "Man, it's a beautiful day out," and they go, "Well, it's raining." Well, it's a beautiful day outside. It's too hot.
Right.
It's a beautiful day. I mean, I don't care what you say. They got something negative to always say. And I learned a long time ago that if you want people to like you, to associate with you, to want to be around you, that you can't be pessimistic. Now, not to say you don't have a bad day every now and again, but continuously going on and on and on and on. Because then what do people do then? People would go, "Hey, how you doing today?" And then they learn early, they would give you the next 20 minutes of how things are going on. So then when people would see you, they just go, "Hey, how's it going?" And then they're moving as they're saying that, because they don't want to stay and talk to you. So to me, I tried my best to stay positive and still do, just because, I mean, life is easier when you're happy and going positive. And not to say bad things are not going to happen, they're still going to come along and do. But I'd rather be happy and paralyzed than miserable and paralyzed.
Mm. That's a great saying. I know in my own life, doctors told my parents when I was, when I was born, that, hey, Dorsey's going to be, brain dead. He might as well be, put into a institution. And thankfully for them, or for me, that they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to take him home and see what's going to happen with him and see what, God's going to do with
That's right.
him.
Do the best we can do. I mean, same thing with my family when they were advised to put me in a nursing home, that would be too much of a burden for them to care for me. And thankfully, we were all hard headed and didn't listen. And, so we did the best that we could.
Right. How did you get the name or the title Dr. King's Badu?
Well, I actually did go to school. I do have a doctoral degree in education. I did teaching coach for about 12, 14 years. And so I ended up, now when I first went to college, when I first went to get to be a professional athlete, I had no intentions of ever graduating out of any college, because I wanted to get drafted to go to the pros. So I was going to go as soon as they gave me the okay. Now, if I never would have got drafted, I knew I would never graduate college anyway. And my fallback was I was going to be an auto mechanic like my dad was. My dad was an auto mechanic, and he taught me some things early on. So once you get paralyzed, and then once you decide you need to do something to get a degree so you can have a better chance of getting a job and everything. And so my older brother, but he was instrumental at this point, he told me, he said, all the hard work and all the ethics that you had for playing baseball, said now you need to direct it towards studying so you can get your degree. And so I ended up getting my degrees, and then I was out of school maybe 15 years. And a friend of mine he was going out getting his doctorate degree, and he kept telling me that I ought to go with him and get it. And I kept saying, no. And finally I did went back and ended up getting my doctoral.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. When you were, coaching and even being a educator, did they ever, look at you and say, James is in, a quadriplegic. There's no way that he can teach, or there's no way that he can coach.
Yeah, I had, it took me, believe it or not, when I got my bachelor's degree, I had applied in Tennessee. There's 95 counties, and I had applied at 50 out of the 95 counties, half of Tennessee. I had applied trying to get a teaching job for 3 years, trying to get a teaching job, and at the second year mark, trying to get a job, That's when I went back to get my master's because I was tired of sitting around and filling out applications and not getting anywhere. So I thought, well, let's at least go back to school and work on a master's degree. And so if I'd have got hired early, I wouldn't have gone any further then. And so it gave me the opportunity, got my master's, and as soon as I graduated, I got hired to teach. But it took 3 years and applying over 50 counties in Tennessee, and there was a bunch. I don't know how many off the top of my head, but a bunch of months where I was putting on 3,000 miles a month on my vehicle. Because, back then we didn't have the internet. Back in the 80s, 83, we didn't have the internet. 83 was got hurt. So in 90, when I started looking, 93 started looking, internet was just starting to be something then. But so I'm driving back and forth to all these other places because I didn't want to wait for the application to come in the mail and then turn around, fill out, and then put it back in the mail and then wait for them. So I would drive to wherever I had to, fill out the application, and personally hand it to them so I know they had it. And putting on 3,000 miles a month several times. I was getting oil changes once a month.
Right. For people, who don't have a disability or who do have a disability and want to pursue that career, but, it takes them, like yourself, it takes them a little longer to do that. How would you encourage someone else to keep going and to keep pursuing that career? Because I'm sure even in, that time, you may have felt, like, I'm just going to give up and not do this anymore. So what kept you going to keep pursuing that teaching career?
I don't know if it was just being dumb and an idiot, but the main reason I wanted to get into the education, it wasn't to teach. It was to get into coaching. So I wanted to coach the high school level in baseball since I played it. And so but back then that was the requirement to coach. You had to teach.
Okay.
Nowadays you don't have to have that. You can be a volunteer coach and not have to step one time in the classroom. And nowadays, so I wish they had that back then. So it was just that mindset. Here I am being invincible again. Nothing was going to stop me. Now, again, it took me 3 years to get that job. How long would I have gone before I'd finally said, forget this, let's do something else? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, for 3 years, I was pretty determined. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of days I'd get done with an interview and I'm driving home 2 hours away or an hour away, and I knew I wasn't going to get the job because the way they interviewed and stuff, and the way it just didn't go right, and you knew right off the bat it wasn't going to happen. And there was one that really got me mad. I was about a 2-hour drive from my house, and I'd called them about a week because I already had the interview set up. So I'd called them 3 or 4 or 5 days before the interview and said, hey, I'm just calling to make sure, do you still have openings in science, health, physical education? And they said, yeah, there's plenty of them out here. I said, all right, I just wanted to be sure. I don't want to drive 2 hours, and if y'all didn't have any opening, that we would waste everybody's time. They said, no, there's plenty of openings. I drive there for the 2 hours, go for the interview, and then the guy interviewing me tells me, well, at this time, there's no openings in the area you're looking for. I said, what do you mean? I just called here 4 days ago, and they told me there was plenty of openings. He says, well, we filled those between then and now. And I said, so why didn't someone call and cancel it instead of me driving 2 hours away? And so I knew I wouldn't get that job anyway, because there's no way they filled those positions in 3 or 4 days.
Right.
He just saw me come in, and there's no way I can prove anything, but I know it had to do something with the wheelchair.
Yeah. How did you get the name Professor of Perseverance?
I met a gentleman named John Bentley, and we were at the National Speakers Association where we met. We were both getting to a speaking career, and he knew that I wanted to talk about perseverance, and he was getting into leadership and transformation. And one day I went to one of the meetings, and then all of a sudden I heard someone going, "Professor of Perseverance." I didn't pay no attention to it. I didn't know what he was. I didn't know he was talking to me. Professor of Perseverance. And then he goes, "James." I turned and say, "Hey, John, what's up?" He said, "Man, I'm calling you." I said, "What?" He said, "Huh?" I go, "What?" He said, "You're the Professor of Perseverance." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "You got a doctorate degree, don't you?" "Yes." "So, all right, you're a professor." He said, "You want to talk about perseverance, don't you?" "Yeah." "You're the Professor of Perseverance." So, man, John Bentley, I always thank you and give you credit for tagging me, man. Appreciate the branding.
I like that. That's very, very cool that you got that name.
Oh yeah, now I got a little joking thing. I don't know if it's a joke, but a funny image. We got Popeye's chicken down the road where I live.
Right.
And one day while I was driving through, it was, kind of starting to get dark, and Popeyes had popped their lights on, and I drove by and I go, "Whoa." So I stopped and took a picture. But when the lights came on for Popeyes for their building, the POP for pop, it lit up, but the EYES didn't light up. So it just had pop, POP. So I took a picture, and then I tell people, I said, "Look, even Popeye's chicken is advertising for Professor of Perseverance."
That's great. Did you ever
I need to get hold of Popeye's franchise or something and tell them its story, and then see if they can hook me up with a speaking engagement.
Right. Well, either that or maybe a free, 3 months of chicken or something like that.
I tell you what, now I sure like their spicy chicken sandwich, boy. Now I've seen things on YouTube where people are actually fighting because they're running out of this chicken sandwich. This was about 2 years ago. You'd see people just fighting. I'm going, I really like it, but it sure ain't worth a fight though.
Yeah, I remember seeing things about that, and then there was even a time when people were arguing, what's better, Chick-fil-A or Popeyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that too. But no, these people here, they were getting mad because they say, "Oh, we just sold the last chicken," and these people are fighting to get the last sandwich. And I'm going, the dude just bought it. What are you gonna beat him up and take his sandwich for? But yeah, they go. Yeah, I think they're good, but they're not fighting good.
Right. Did you ever go through depression? And for people who, have gone through depression or, are in depression at the moment, how do you encourage them to, deal with it and even come out of it at some point?
First 5 years, apparently I was in a depression, but I tried my best to hide it from everybody, and was, I guess, in denial and hiding it from myself. And because the first 5 years, I went to like 18 different rehabs trying to find that cure to walk again. And a lot of them were one-day evaluations, drive to Atlanta 4 or 5 hours away for a one-day evaluation, drive to Knoxville a couple hours away. A lot of them were one-day evaluations. One time I stayed in Miami for 3 months for a research with them. And it was probably that one was the last one. I drove one time to Pennsylvania, up in the Philadelphia area. And for the guy was doing some type of implants, spinal cord stimulation. And that, drove 18 hours to be up there for him to spend 15 minutes sitting. He didn't think he could help. And so finally, after the last one I went to, and it'd been about 5 years, and then told my family, told my brother, mom and brothers, and even was telling myself that I'm not giving up on the walk-in, but we've got to put it on the back burner. That if I'm going to have any type of life, I need to get my degree and try to get a job. And I said, because I didn't know a lot of people back then when I first got hurt. they lived in my area, there were spinal cord injuries or not. So we didn't have anybody else to talk to understand what is possible or what's not. And so I just figured you have to have a degree to get out and do something. And so what eventually I tell people is I lied to everybody then, but I just didn't knowingly lie at that point, because after that 5 years, I've not one time, now it's been 30 plus years since then, not one time have I gone back to any rehab trying to walk again. Now, I've gone to rehabs to try to gain some strength again, therapy to stretch legs and parts, but to try to walk again, I haven't really gone. So really, in reality, when I said we're putting it on the back burner, I lied to everybody and myself that it was, time to move on. And so I was in a depression those 5 years because trying to get walking wouldn't work and everything. So I'm hiding it from everybody. And when I finally got out of it after 5 years, then I realized how bad I really was. Now, I would encourage anybody, if you're going through any type of depression, don't hold back on talking to someone. Find someone that you can trust that would keep your, I don't say secrets, but keep your information, your conversation, and not spread rumors and tell other people, that someone you can trust. If you don't think it's your spouse or mom and dad or somebody, then seek professional help. Go find a psychologist, psychiatrist, go get a minister, preacher. They'll find counseling with you. And so you find someone you can open up with, and then let them also advise on other things that can help you get better.
Right. So what are 3 life lessons that you could share with us today?
The life lesson, to have a great sense of humility and thankfulness and gratitude, for what you have. We're not all going to be, I don't care who you are, I don't care how healthy you are, we don't all have everything, and we always seem like we want more. And I think that especially when we're disabled, we need to be thankful for what we have, because if you look hard enough, you can find someone that's in worse shape than you.
Right, definitely. I feel the same way. I see people who have the same disability that I do, and sometimes they're worse off than I am. I'm like, thank you God for helping me to be able to do what I can, that I could be worse off as well.
I tell you, we've always heard the Serenity Prayer. We've always heard the first part of it. I didn't realize till I was researching a couple years ago how much more is in that Serenity Prayer. But the basic is, God grant me serenity to accept the things I can do and I forgot it all now. But serenity, be thankful to what I can do than what I can do, and then the knowledge or understanding to know the difference.
Right. What is your 3 P's of success?
Yeah, 3 P's of success is, of course, P for perseverance. I don't care. Just keep moving forward the best you can. If someone says, man, every time it seems like I've got 3 steps forward, I'm ahead of the game. It seems like something happens and knocks me back 2 steps back. I go, cool, that's all right then, because you're still 1 in the good. You went 3 forward and only back twice. Hey, you're still in the good. So even if you're moving at a snail's pace, just keep moving forward the best you can and go from there. Also, I believe you have to have, what's called partners in life. Partners not necessarily meaning marriage or spouse or anything, but it can be that. But also find people that's going through what you're going through. They've been there before you, and find an organization or associations that can help you get through what you're going through, and from there. And then the last one I put is pray and be positive. So that's if people's not a prayer, if you're not a prayer, then definitely just stay positive the best you can.
Right.
I mean, if you don't want to pray, meditate or stay silent, do something that's going to give you that mindset to let you reflect back and get a positive start.
Yeah. If someone wanted to buy your book or wanted to, connect with you to maybe have you come and speak at an event or at a, church or whatever, how would they go about doing that?
The easiest way is most of my stuff, again, is branded with Professor of Perseverance. So that's my webpage, professorofperseverance.com, or that's my Instagram, that's my YouTube channel, that's my podcast, Professor of Perseverance. So you just Google Professor of Perseverance and you should be able to find me in there somewhere. And yep, I would love to come speak to your group, your organization, and help y'all do. I teach also what's called the ABCs, and I tell them ABCs is A, let's accept the adversity; B, let's begin battling; and C, let's conquer the challenges.
Very cool. And as we end today, give us a positive power statement for people who are struggling.
I would tell people again, be grateful for what you have and be sure to help someone else along the way. You don't have to do everything out of your life to help everybody, because we can't do that. If we get ourselves too thin because we're giving to other people, then we neglect our health and our being, and then we can't even help our own self. So I know you can't give every time you turn around, but when you can, then try to do something to help someone. Again, I can't mow someone's yard, but I can find someone that can mow it for them if they need someone to help. So, right. Just be able to be grateful and help others.
Sounds good. Well, James, thank you again for joining me on this episode of the Dorsey Ross podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us today on the Dorsey Ross podcast. Please don't forget to check out Dorsey's website at www.dorseyrossministries.com, and also check out his book titled Overcomer, where he shares his story of what God has done in his life. You can also donate to his ministry or to this podcast as well. Until next time, God bless and have a great day.